Hey everybody, Steven here. Thanks so much for coming out to the studio. So in this episode, I'm going to take you guys on a little bit of a different track than what we've been doing so far. And I'm going to go more in-depth into more of a tutorial style painting. So you'll be able to follow along with me if you want to paint it yourself. And you'll see me painting in real time, which is super valuable. And also I'm going to have the paints that I'm mixing with and using up on the screen for you to follow along with and see. So overall, it'll be a great experience to learn if you're a little bit more serious about actually getting your fingers dirty painting, and it'll be a great learning experience. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so let's take a look at our colors. We have Mars Black, Raw Umber, Raw Sienna, Naphthalene Carmine, Yellow Ochre, Cerulean Blue, and Titanium White. So those are the main colors we're going to be using, and we're going to start off by toning our canvas with some raw sienna and water, and that's just where we cover the entire canvas with one coat of that brown paint. You can see the consistency. That's what you want. You just want something that spreads really easily. And the canvas size that we're using today is just a small 8x10, I believe it is, but you definitely don't have to have the same exact size to paint this picture along with me. Just something rectangular that we can put horizontally on the easel. And remember, the reason for toning is to just get rid of that stark white canvas so that we can judge our colors better. And in just a few minutes, you can go ahead and feel it, and if it's dry, you can start putting your sketch on. And we're just taking some more raw sienna, just something that will show up very lightly. And when I'm doing sketches, I'm just basically taking my time, and you notice that I'm not too rigid about keeping it. If I put it down, you notice I moved the mountain peak up a little higher there, and I'm just going to speed it up so you can kind of see what I end up with. And now we're going to go ahead and start painting. So we're going to start with the farthest away objects, which in this case is the sky, and then work our way forward. And you see I'm starting out with some titanium white and a little bit of cerulean, and I'm working on the horizon there, which is going to be a really light blue. And we're not going to get too fancy with the sky. We're just basically going to make it blue with some haze and clouds. So you can see I'm upping the cerulean blue just a little bit as I work my way up, and that adds a nice distance effect. And now we're going to be grabbing a little bit of burnt umber and that red. I'm just going to call it red. It's that naphthalene carmine, but you can basically use any type of red. And I'm just going to start to block in our sky. And now I'm going to take the colors that you see up there and start putting in the mountain peak here. I want to keep my edges of the mountain really crisp so that it stands out against the sky. And with these colors here, I'm going to put in another mountain peak further down. And because the color is lighter, it's going to look further away. And I'm going to blend it up into that mountain there, just to keep that depth working in the painting. You notice I upgraded to a little bit of a bigger filbert brush just to cover a little bit more ground. And I'm just going to blend that out. And now we're going to start working on some of our snow. And the idea behind putting in the snow here is not to get too fancy, but you can try different things out and you'd be surprised at how it will end up looking like snow when you just kind of almost haphazardly just put it on there. And the more you practice, the more deliberate you become with where you put your snow to make it look realistic. So practice really helps in determining, how the mountain should look when you're adding snow to it. And at this point, I had a few reference photos that I was loosely following, but when it comes to putting on snow like this, I kind of just dropped the color on, and the ideas kind of just came as I painted it. And here you notice I've been adding in some shadows to the mountain, and that really brings the mountain there forward, which again keeps our sense of depth working together. And there's the colors, of course, below that I use for that mixture. And you notice the snow that I put kind of in the valley there between those two peaks is almost the same shade of blue as the mountain peak that I painted above it. And that goes to show the simplicity of this kind of painting, because you are only using one color, but you're achieving a really nice distance effect at the same time. So it doesn't have to be complicated, in other words. And here you see me cleaning out my brush there quick, and I'm just going to step back 6 feet or so and just look at it for a while, because that really helps me plan the next steps. And that is so important. I've said that before. Just do that every so often when you're painting. And now I'm jumping back in with some cerulean blue, raw sienna, and naphthalene carmine red. And I'm going to start painting in a continuation of these mountains, kind of coming a little bit more forward in front of these two peaks. And that's the colors I'm using. And I'm just going to put it right in, just like that. Sweet. So now that we have our complete block in, we know kind of what we're going for, and we can begin the modeling and detailing stage. So again, you can see I'm using some titanium white and cerulean blue, and I'm actually starting to bring that snow line forward into the foreground, which you can see how I put that together, but I'll just say right off the bat that I didn't end up keeping the snow in the foreground, but that's really a choice that you can make as you're painting it, because it definitely works, but I just chose to go a different route, and then you can obviously see me paint it a little bit differently at the end. But that's what I'm doing here. I'm just bringing that snow line forward, and also using this combination of paint to add in some pine trees here. And you notice the brush I'm using is a filbert brush that I'm just pointing vertically and kind of tapping it on the canvas. It adds a nice vague evergreen look. And right there, I decided to kind of stick in a little bit of a hillside coming out of the mountains down there. I had the green a little bit lighter so it looks farther away. And here you see I'm using a lighter blue to bring the snow line forward. And you notice too that I'm having it slope downwards towards the right, and that gives an illusion that you're kind of up on this mountain looking across the mountain range, and then also down kind of in the foothills there. Notice I'm putting in some pines there as well with a little bit more of a detailed brush, and of course the green is a little bit darker. And then using that titanium white, I kind of just put in a little bit of a river, and that's it. You can go for that if you want, but we're going to go ahead and see how I changed it a little bit. I took away that little hillside down below that I had added in just by painting a little bit of that light blue over the top of it and just kind of fading it out, which is super easy, especially with acrylics, which is what we're using here. You can see I have a lot of blue in there. And then I'm taking some more of that green, and I'm just basically erasing the foreground snow, because I thought that the mountain peaks behind stood out much better with the snow gone in the foreground. So we're just erasing it. And now I got rid of the snow, so I'm going to be adding in some yellow here in the foreground just to give it kind of an early spring look. It creates a nice light green when you just put that yellow ochre right over the top of that darker green. And you notice with the filbert brush too that I am creating the illusion of this hillside that's sloping down from the foothills there. It is a simple thing that you can do that really brings a painting together. And now we're going to go on to the funnest part. My favorite part is adding in those fine details. So with a really fine brush, with just pure titanium white, I'm going to start just slightly tapping and spreading the white onto the highlighted snow. And our light source is coming in obviously from the left here, so we're going to kind of imagine where the sun is hitting. And another trick that you can keep in mind when you're doing these last highlights is don't completely cover up the snow highlights that you have underneath it. You notice I have already some snow highlights and some snow shadows. These details are going to go over the top of that, but we don't want to cover up our snow highlights that we already have completely. We just want to accent those by putting in these final highlights. And if you're wondering what I'm doing there, I'm basically just smudging away excess paint that kind of globbed on a little too thick. Totally fine to do it with your finger. I guess you could do it with a brush too, but I like to sometimes do it with my finger. That's alright. And you notice, even this far along in the painting, I still have a little bit of that raw sienna from our toning showing through there on the right mountain, and that's alright. In just a little bit here you'll see me fill that in with a little bit more shadows. We're just finishing up with some highlights. You notice too, the titanium white here, I darkened it just slightly. You don't have to do that, I just chose to do that just because I wanted it to be a little lower and catching less light. And right here you see I'm filling in the last vestiges of our toning, which is that raw sienna kind of showing through a little bit, just with some cerulean blue and a little titanium white. It adds a nice shadowy snow effect and gets rid of the last of the toning. I guess it just worked out that way, but really most of that will be gone in your blocking. And with some titanium white, we're just filling in the last details. You can see I'm just taking that white and snaking a little bit of a stream coming down from the snow melt on top of the mountains. And I thought that the foreground needed a little bit more highlighting, so I took some more yellow ochre and just made that hillside a little bit brighter. You need to do that often with acrylics when you're trying to achieve highlights. And here, taking just a little bit of a light kind of greenish blue teal sort of color and creating kind of a shadowy, almost like a frosty shadow, where you might have a little bit of snow still kind of clinging to the shadows there. And with these last details, we're done with the painting. Okay, sweet. So we're done with the painting. I hope you guys learned a lot. It was really fun to do it with you. And I know it was a little bit longer, but there's a lot packed in there, and it is super fun to be able to have something that you can actually follow. Most of my paintings are all sped up, so I know it's kind of hard to actually paint along with me if you're into that. So it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. Until next time, God bless you guys. We'll see you later.